That's the thing. Can you guys hear Zara? Or is it pretty
No,
low?
I don't. I can't hear it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can. It's just me. Joys of hearing it as the dad. But I'm happy you guys don't have to hear it. So that's good.
Good that you can hear it though. Somebody should.
Somebody should. Yeah, I know. But the problem is like she just took too long of a nap and is pissed. Like there's not much I can do. Um,
I hear her now.
yeah. Oh, you do? You heard that one?
Yeah, I hear her.
Yeah.
Got better audio probably.
Yeah. Um, Anyway, let's get into some of this NFL action. It's still the same score, I believe, right? In this football game, it was
Yeah,
Yes.
Philly punted just now, I think.
okay.
By the way, breaking news came across the wire. The Atlanta Falcons interviewed Bill Belichick for their head coaching position.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumors that was going to happen. Now there's talk that Dallas
Yeah,
might be in on it.
I think Dallas will possibly try.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they finesse that. How long is this current coach's contract for them? Was
One
he?
more season, but
Okay.
one extra year isn't crazy to fire somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
I
Yeah.
don't think the money is going to stop them if they want to get rid of him now.
Yeah, for sure. It's so comedic to me that that coach is now 3-0 for Green Bay in his history, but
Yeah,
apparently the Cowboys
all
coach.
all the Packers fans are like, no disrespect to Mike McCarthy. I'm like, well, yeah, because he always wins for you, but
Right. I just can't believe someone was saying this stat that Green Bay has never lost in that stadium. Not only in 3 games in the postseason, but all the games in the regular season too, which is just
yeah,
remarkable to me.
crazy. It's not like it wasn't even really open during the Packers peak, I would say. It was a little later than Rodgers' best years, but even this season, new quarterback's still winning there, so
Yeah, for sure. And who had love being so good? I just happy they exploited the run game, and that was like the pretty obvious weakness for them. But they definitely watched tape in those last couple of weeks that yeah, they seem to be exposed. It was funny because I was going back through the film of our podcast last week, and we all did take Dallas in it. But Tim, you had some
yeah.
interesting points that you were saying about how the Rams have kind of exposed and opened up a playbook of what you could potentially do, on the road in that statement or in that stadium. And I thought that they kind of followed that to a T. And it was funny because I was listening back to what I had to say, and I literally said some of the same things in the sense that if this game was in Lambeau, I actually feel like Green Bay would crush them. But because there's been all this home cooked officiating all season long, I thought that would continue in the postseason. But I thought that the officiating was actually pretty even in this game, and some of the results may have been, what we saw. So, but we'll get into that game in a second. First, Ken, any opening thoughts that you have on this week in general?
A lot of blowouts I see, and it's like really surprising to see a lot of these blowouts and stuff like that. But we've had seen some very competitive games. Like we're seeing a competitive game right now with Tampa Bay and Philly, and we saw a competitive game with the Lions and the Rams. But we've been seeing a lot of I've been seeing a lot of blowouts as well. So it's like crazy to see that. But I don't foresee divisional weekend playing out with blowouts. I think they're going to be a lot more competitive games in the divisional round than we see in the Super Wild Card weekend.
Yeah, just it's kind of crazy how these games went because some of them went about what I would expected, but other ones didn't. Um, let's start off with the Texans and the Browns. You know, I thought that was just an interesting matchup, with Flacco, and the trading of the quarterback and all of that lead up and hype. I mean, the Texans were favored by like 2.5 in that one, but it's like barely for a home team. And to just blow out the Browns that badly, and for Joe Flacco to play so terribly. Tim, what were some of your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I actually saw the Browns were favored by like 1 or 2 points in some betting, but it might have changed. Obviously, pretty close game, no matter how you had the final line. The bettors thought it was going to be close either way. I think Flacco, those interceptions that he threw, obviously, two pick six plays basically in a row, that kills you. You cannot win a game where you throw two pick six, like period, especially two drives in a row. So they were really out of it in the second quarter. Um, I thought the beginning of the game went to script. I mean, the Browns were actually moving the ball. Flacco looked pretty good. They took the lead with a touchdown, but Houston's offense was really strong. I thought their quarterback played great. Stroud was great. The receivers really stepped up. They made a lot of explosive plays, and the Browns defense was a huge letdown. That they were one of the top two ranked defenses the whole year. A lot of people thought they were the best, maybe in the whole league, and they just got gashed. I did not expect Houston to score so easily. Um, Also, I think Houston has a good home crowd. I didn't really expect that. Because it's not like they get a lot of national games. You don't really see like their loud stadium, so that helped them. And yeah, I mean they're playing really confident football. They kind of came on late, so again, more failures for the Browns. You got to feel it for Cleveland because this was like finally their year, they thought, and they hadn't won a playoff game since 1991, and still waiting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like they had a false sense of security because they had just beaten the Texans, but the Texans didn't have their
Yeah,
quarterback. And,
badly. Yeah.
and I
In
think
Houston
that,
too.
yeah, I don't know. It just I don't know.
Stroud's
I
that
feel like
good though. I mean,
they
he's
had this false sense of security where they just felt like they were going to do better, I think, than they really did. And they thought they had the playbook, but obviously the
yeah.
playbook changes based on your quarterback. And they couldn't get ready for it. I mean, sure, there's tape, but it's obviously very different to play against it. And so I thought they did a good job of changing up what didn't work the first time and moving to what really did. And I was just really surprised. Ken, what were some of your thoughts on it?
The Flacco magic was gone in this game, clearly. I mean, he had a magical run to get this team to the playoffs after being sitting on the couch prior to being signed by Cleveland. And then next thing you know, they went from nowhere to being in the playoffs, but the magic had to fade, and it faded right here. CJ Stroud went 16 to 21 for 274 yards and three touchdowns and had a perfect passer rating of 157.2. He completed passes to seven different pass catchers in this game. Clearly, the offense stepped up big, and the defense was great too, as Tim alluded to, with the two pick sixes that they had it on back-to-back drives. That's just a recipe for being successful. And now CJ Stroud is showing why he should have been the number one overall pick, but the chips fell where they did, and right now he's now get him and his team are getting ready to go to Baltimore and play against the Ravens. Whereas, I mean, and I think that's going to be an interesting matchup to say the very least. But CJ Stroud played very very well. Yeah, Flacco had a little something in here, but those two pick sixes were a a real detriment to this team actually winning this game, and it turned out that they couldn't. They just got blown out.
Yeah. Um, I was just surprised it was so lopsided. I really thought it was going to be closer. To be totally honest, I thought these two teams were pretty evenly matched. But just the wheels kind of fell off. And it was just kind of consistent in the sense that like they beat them by a little bit every single quarter, and it just kind of grew over time. And then in the third quarter, it just kind of exploded with that sort of the two interceptions within just a few minutes. I mean, because at that point it was 14-24 at half. It wasn't like out of the realm for them to come back, but um, yeah, 82-yard touchdown interception, and then right away, I mean, just a couple minutes later, a 36-yard pick six, and suddenly it balloons from 24-14 to 38-14, which is hard to come back from that situation. And then they got an extra rushing touchdown there at the end. And
Wait,
did he get a safety? No. Wait, did he?
I think it's going to be a safety. I think they just threw the flag for intentional grounding in the end zone.
Yeah. All right. So he's pushed back. He's pushed back. I'm surprised he went that far back.
Yeah, that's a safety. I think he was down when he
I think he was
threw it.
down too.
I don't even think they have to.
Wow, that's gonna be a big score though.
You know what is funny? That missed two point becomes really huge now because now it's a two-score
Absolutely.
game.
Yeah,
I
Absolutely.
was thinking that when he went for it, I was like, the tush push is good, but everybody knows it. Like, you should probably just kick it here and cut it to six because like cutting it to five is not to me like it's not a huge deal. I would just kick it.
yeah,
Obviously, if you get it, you look good, but
yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah, how you're right. It may come back and haunt them. I was sort of surprised. I was like that Ken had joined in on the chat talking about the tush push and how it didn't work, and it's an
The
interesting.
brotherly shove failed.
it's
I
Yeah,
a
loved
great
it.
play. Yeah, if you have one guy jump over the top from the defense and he gets the quarterback like at the point where he's gonna kind of jump forward, it's possible to stop him like that, but
yeah. That's
it's
wild.
tough. You have to time it correctly.
A nice run back there, almost to the 40-yard line there on the free kick. So they got the points for the safety for our people who might not be Americans that are listening around the world. So a safety, you get two, and they have to kick it back off to Tampa Bay again. And Tampa Bay gets the ball, so it's a double negative. They get the ball and they get points. So great result, as they
It's
say.
also kind of weird because you have to punt it, so usually you get good field position.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
exactly.
like 5 seconds behind you, Robbie.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because I'm on
You're
YouTube
probably already
TV.
on the play after the
Yeah,
punt off or whatever you call it.
right.
Free kick.
Yeah, free kick.
Yeah, yeah,
Damn, people, the kickers are good at that now, though.
yeah. They kicked it pretty
They
far.
like boom it.
Yeah. So I found that ESPN, I think, is like 10 seconds faster than ABC. Because I was
Yeah,
checking it
I think
out.
I'm on Ken's time, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I'm watching on ABC.
yeah. I
yeah,
don't, I don't know why that is a thing, but it is. And then there's like a third way to
it
watch it if you want to
isn't
watch.
it. It's because the networks are worried about like some nudity or something. They put a little delay.
Interesting.
ESPN just probably lets it rip
Yeah, for sure.
in case someone runs out on the field.
So, ooh, that's a nice play right there. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Hold
just
on, bro.
heard
I
some.
haven't.
I heard a child,
Hang on. Don't. Yeah. See, Tim, you heard it too, right?
or
But
it's
hold
an
on.
Eagles
Don't
fan
don't
lives
don't say
next to
nothing,
Robbie.
Robbie, because I'm still watching. They're showing play. They're showing players and coaches and stuff like that. I haven't seen a play at 2nd and 4.
Yeah.
What's
All
what's
right.
what's about to
Well,
happen here?
I'll just say that it's a good thing for us. And let it play out for you guys.
Oh, get shit on. Oh, he gone. Oh, he gone. Yo, okay, we're gonna talk about this game later, but I gotta put this out here. The secondary for the Eagles have been tackling like absolute babies. They can't tackle for crap tonight. Holy crap! That's the second time that a play went for over 40 yards because of poor tackling.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
first touchdown was terrible tackling too.
Oh my god, they absolutely got
Oh,
just
what a cut though.
absolutely
Just
crapped on.
I love that cut. Just that step and then
Yeah,
just
he was gone.
it was gone and that guy
I
was
love that Eagles
lost.
fan in the crowd too.
All right, we got Arun who's I think tuning in. Feel free to jump on in whenever you want to on that. I wonder if Arun is on my time or even ahead of where I am, because but
Game's already over at his house
yeah,
somehow.
exactly. He's in the future.
I
Um,
want to hear Arun's thoughts on that Cleveland Texans game, though. Deadass.
yeah, that's true. Let's go. I mean, we haven't actually gotten into the next game, so it's still good timing. Arun, quickly, what are your thoughts on the Browns Texans game, and then your thoughts on that last touchdown right there?
Yeah, the Browns had beaten the Texans earlier in the year, but there's a big difference between Case Keenum and CJ Stroud, and it's tough to beat a team twice in a row um at their home place. So I picked the Texans to win, but it was kind of like a toss-up game. It was more of a cop-out than being like it's an evenly matched game. But the Texans just kind of uh, destroyed the Browns. I heard some Browns complaining about the officiating, but either way, Flacco threw two pick sixes back to back. So it looked like the Texans just were more like it's tough to beat a team twice in a row. They put up 30 plus points against the Texans, so they were kind of embarrassed. And maybe the Browns defense isn't like all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, for sure. And then did you catch that touchdown that just happened right there?
No, but I'm assuming the Eagles are getting destroyed. Like,
Yes, it was a 56-yard touchdown, I want to say.
Yeah, it was 56 yards.
Yes.
Homie caught the ball, took one cut, broke the tackle, and just took off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. Um, yeah, so that's a
I
big
have
play
some
right there.
breaking news. Apparently, Tony Dungy said some anti Taylor Swift stuff during this game, and people are like getting really mad at him on social media.
I kind of love that.
Yeah, I know. I'm seeing
Careful,
all
Cam.
these.
Those Swifties are strong. They're gonna
I
come for
know.
you.
He said I don't even know if it was that bad, but a lot of people are like saying that she's great for the NFL and stuff.
I think.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I was gonna say the NFL is doing fine. And I have
Yeah,
nothing
it was
against
doing fine
Taylor
before.
Swift. I just don't feel like it needs to be talked about. Like other people's spouses aren't covered as much, you know? Like it doesn't yeah, and she's not even a spouse, so um anyway, speaking of game, that's actually a great segue. Let's just go with it. Next game is Chiefs Dolphins, and yeah, I thought this game would also be closer, but the Chiefs scored in the first quarter, then got a field goal in the second. Uh, then Miami came back and made it 10-7, which I thought would make it closer, and then two field goals to end the first half made it 16-7, and then they got a field goal in the third, and then a touchdown in the fourth quarter there to pull away. It was definitely a very cold game, one of the coldest in history. I'll start off with you, Tim. What were some of your thoughts on this game? Also, people were complaining because it was on Peacock, and thank you
Yeah,
for helping me on that. So, but
yeah, no problem.
but
I
Tim, what
used
were
all
some of
three
your
of my logins for sure.
exactly,
I had to make choices, but you made the cut.
exactly? I
Yeah.
was I was in, but so I appreciate that. But Tim, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
So I think most people going into this game probably thought Miami would lose, most likely because the cold, because it was crazy cold. But I think it was more than that. I think it was more just Miami has been so beat up lately, especially on defense. They had some guys coming in off the street. I think they had signed Justin Houston off the street. He had not played for any team this year and is getting really old. And I saw him playing important plays. And so they really struggled, I think, um, to contain the Chiefs on defense. Obviously, they didn't give up a ton of points, but the Chiefs actually had a bunch of drops. Like Kelsey had 3 or 4 drops. He played okay, but I feel like the Chiefs were able to move the ball pretty easily, especially passing the ball, and they were able to really control the clock. And Miami's offense just did not look good. They had one really nice touchdown to Tyreek Hill, but Waddle didn't do a lot. They were able to kind of contain Hill too. And Tua did not look great. He had, I think, at least one interception, and their offense is just has been way less explosive for about a month now, scoring a lot less points, and obviously 7 isn't going to get it done. But I don't think Miami was its full strength, and normally I think they would have played the Chiefs tougher, but it's the Chiefs, and in the playoffs they had the Andy Reid icicle mustache. That was definitely good luck. And he called a good game, and their defense played really well, so they deserve to win. And Miami is going to be disappointed with this season. They blew the division. They did not play well this game really, but I think they'll have that offense going for a while, so they could come back next year and be pretty good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'll go to Ken. Your thoughts next on this matchup?
So to Tim's point too, it did have an interception in this game. He went 20 of 39 for 199 yards. He did have a touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill. Hill was the leading receiver, but only had 5 catches for 62 yards. While on the other side, Rashid Rice absolutely balled out in this game. 8 catches off of 12 targets for 130 yards and a touchdown. So he was definitely the leading receiver there for Kansas City. And clearly, Kansas City, the Chiefs are used to this climate. It was a very cold game, and they were able to withstand this type of environment. Miami was not able to do so, and because of that, they weren't able to do anything. And this is coming off of them losing a game where they could have went from playing they could have went to being a division champion, but they lost, so they were already coming in with little to no momentum, and they come into Kansas City against the defending champs, and the defending champs in their own environment were able to do what they had to do to win this game. They were able to grind it out and able to do what they had to do to move on to the divisional round. So basically, Miami, they should not rest on their laurels, as Tim alluded to. They should build upon this. Tua had a very, very promising year this year. I should know I had him as my starting fantasy quarterback all year, and he's put up big numbers a lot of games. So I think that this offense, like Tim said, will be all right. They'll do well. Mostert had struggled running the ball. He only had 33 yards on 8 carries. So, but I think that they're going to be all right. But KC did what they had to do in the environment that they're used to in order to move on.
Yeah, I don't. It's hard to know with this Kansas City team. They have the history. It'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting matchup. We'll get into next week's matchups in a little bit, but they've got a tough one coming up for sure. Arun, what are some of your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Tua was 0-4 in sub 40-degree temperatures coming into this game, and I believe it was like it was 7 degrees Fahrenheit, so it was much colder than any game Tua has ever played in. And that's not just a Tua thing; that's like the whole Miami Dolphins. Like they look like kind of a step slow. Like Patrick Mahomes was kind of running all over them. I think he had more rushing yards than like Miami did as a team, which is not great. And like Mostert, 8 carries for 33 yards is like okay, but Shane, he only had 6 carries for 9 yards, and I think Waddle not being 100% probably, and even though Tyreek Hill's had that great touchdown, like I think their second best receiver was Cedric Wilson Jr. and he only had 3 receptions. So the Dolphins were throwing the ball. The weather was pretty bad. Um, and there were injuries and probably some bad losses. Like I think they lost to the Jets earlier in the year. That probably would have given them home field. Miami seems to be one of those teams that needs home field to move on in the playoffs, especially in this really cold weather. So, and the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They're the defending champs for a reason. And even though Kelsey had a couple of drop balls, Rice, he made up for it. He led the team in drop passes this season, but he looked like a Tyreek Hill replacement in this one. So good win for the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs have been really down at some parts in this season. I kind of wondered how they would do against a team like Miami. I definitely think that it being so cold was a huge advantage for Kansas City. Just because Miami couldn't keep up with that. I do think if this was in Miami, it would have been a different story. I really kind of feel that way. But yeah, Chiefs hold on and they are able to win that game. And I feel like it looks more dominating 26-7 than I feel it was. I thought it was a pretty close game for most of it. But they just kind of pulled away towards the end. The next game was less close all the way through, which made me really happy. And I know Ken is so happy to talk about this one. Let's break it down real fast with the scoring. Rushing touchdown to begin it for Green Bay over Dallas, 7-0. And then another rushing touchdown makes it 14-0. Then a pass makes it 20-0, but they missed the extra point. And then an interception of Dak Prescott for a 64-yard touchdown made it 27-0. And unfortunately, they were able to score right at the end of the first half to make it 27-7. They got kind of lucky on that one, and a penalty was called, and they got another opportunity there. But I was kind of hoping that they would get all the way to the end and be a little bit short, and the time would have run down. That would have just been a perfect half. But I'll take 27-7. And the second half, they did score a field goal. They did have the ball in the opening drive in the second half, which I thought could be important. Green Bay won the coin toss and elected to receive, which is rare in the NFL. But they wanted to go out there and score early and often, and that worked for them. So I appreciate them doing that. The risk is it gives the other team an opportunity to try to get back into the game. I thought it was huge that they held them to a field goal and not a touchdown. I think it was 27-14 there. Just the psyche is a little bit different. Green Bay was able to score another touchdown to go up 34-10. Then the Cowboys scored a touchdown. They missed their extra point. And then Green Bay got a touchdown at the very end of the third quarter to make it 41-16. Then they made it 48-16, and then Dallas got two touchdowns in the last 6 minutes of the game to make it look closer than I really feel it was. This is kind of the opposite. The other box score, I was like, oh, that game looks like a lot more like a lopsided victory than I thought it really was. This, I think, should have looked more lopsided at the end with how bad they were being beaten throughout this game, and they kind of let them in it at the end a little bit. But they kind of also knew that they were going to need like 3 touchdowns each with 2-point conversions and onside kicks. The likelihood of getting all of it is pretty low. I'm going to let Ken start because he's just so excited. But Ken, what were some of your thoughts on this game?
This wine tastes really good, but you know what tastes even better? Cowboy fans' tears. That tastes better. I'm just going to put that out there. Okay. Now, Aaron Jones, they put up a stat during this game, and it's really stood out to me, and I brought it to you guys as well. I think I brought it to you guys. Aaron Jones, in a minimum of 3 games against the Cowboys, has the most rushing yards per game against the Cowboys than 2 Hall of Famers, Walter Payton and Barry Sanders. Okay? Let that sink in for a minute. That Aaron Jones has more rushing yards per game against the Cowboys than 2 legends at the running back position. This game, he had 118 yards on 21 carries, a 5.6 average, and he had 3 touchdowns. He simply owned the Cowboys. And you know who else owned the Cowboys? Jordan Love. Before this season started, there were so many of these so-called pundits, so-called experts who were talking all this trash about Jordan Love and what he can and can't do and what this, that, and the third. Jordan Love is like the reincarnation of Brett Favre, and Brett Favre ain't even dead yet. The way he throws off his back foot, the way Brett Favre does, and throws dimes, you would think that Brett Favre had died and was reincarnated in Jordan Love. That's just how uncanny the resemblance is to the throwing style of Jordan Love on some of the passes that he had in this game. One thing I've learned about Dallas, especially this season, they'll play crappy teams, like really bad teams, and beat the crap out of them, and their fans will eat it up and think that they're the best thing since sliced bread. But when they play an actual good team that'll give them competition, they fold. And that's what happened here. They played an actual legit good team at home, and they folded. They went out, they played scared, they played like they thought it was in the bag, and it wasn't, and they got exposed. And I am so happy that they got exposed the way that they did, because good Lord, if they'd have made it to the divisional round, we'd never hit the end of it. So thank you to Green Bay for going down to Texas and exposing this poser team known as the Dallas Cowboys. Okay. Packers just absolutely played a complete football game. I can't forget about Romeo Doubs, though. 6 catches off of 6 targets. He caught every one of his targets for 151 yards and a touchdown. Absolutely a well-played game by this team.
Yeah, I wanted to give a little update. I was trying to give it enough time to pass. But they were a fourth down opportunity for the Eagles. They kicked the field goal. They then a penalty was called against Tampa Bay, giving them a better shot at it. The Eagles have been the most successful fourth down team all season long. They go for it, but instead of going for it short to get the 5 yards, they go for the end zone, and good defensive play, and yeah, got nothing for it. So turnover on downs there. So I'm watching an Eagles fan on another screen who I follow, and he's on delay. So I enjoyed watching it happen, and then watching 10 seconds later, just get very pissed for it. So it's great. We got to talk about the Cowboys losing and the Eagles having horrible moments all at the same time. Ken, it's a dream come true for us as Commanders fans. Yeah, I would be so happy if all of the NFC East teams are sitting on the couch after week one, and here we got us with the second round, pick, and it'll be interesting to see what happens here. All right, I'm gonna let Tim, you give your thoughts next on this matchup.
I don't have a whole lot to add. It's great, like you're saying, the NFC East will be out in a couple minutes here. It looks like if Tampa can close it out again, not the same as you guys because you're Washington fans, but I also have a lot of annoying Cowboys fans in my life because of my job. It's in Arlington, Texas, so a lot of coworkers go to games, love the
Were they
Cowboys.
convinced it was their year, Tim? Was it? Were they?
Yeah, like because I went there twice during football season, so I had to hear all about it. Like, they set probably some records for playing just at home this year, and I had to hear about all of that, and how they were like historically good and all this stuff. And I remember my managers telling me that Prescott's better than Aikman because Aikman threw too many
Oh my God.
interceptions and like all this stuff. So yeah, it was just crazy because they're like pretty delusional. Like, they're not the only fan base, but
Tim,
they
Tim, did that guy get drug tested? I'm being serious. I'm being so serious. Did he get drug tested? Because you have
no,
to be
no.
on
I mean,
drugs to think that you have to be
I
on
don't
drugs
put
to think
companies
that
like that.
Dak Prescott is better than Troy Aikman. And I'm nowhere near a Cowboys fan, but even I know how great Troy Aikman was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another. We'll save that for another show, maybe that debate. But that's just illustrates how delusional they are, and um, yeah. I mean, I think they assumed like they would at least get to play San Francisco in the NFC Championship. That was their lowest bar for successful season,
Yeah.
and 2 weeks before that. So
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Arun, any final thoughts on this one?
You're muted, Arun.
like drop.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it worked out for the Packers that they traded Aaron Rodgers. Like he only played 4 snaps this year, and he's apparently going crazy this past week. I guess he's making more news than Jordan Love, but Love had a better game than Aaron Rodgers did in a do or die game in the last couple of years. Last year, the Packers could have made the playoffs if they won their last game against the Lions, and the Lions, I don't think they really had anything to play for other than just being a spoiler, and the Packers lost. So, and this season, Jordan Love, he not only beat the Bears in a do or die game, but they just dominated the Cowboys on both ends in the first half. And like Dak Prescott, he didn't have the back to back pick sixes, but they were. He did throw a couple interceptions that led to touchdowns, so I can't like completely blame the defense. It was like also self-inflicted wounds by the offense. CD Lamb celebrating on like a first down, a 10-yard play was kind of ridiculous when they're down by 20 points. He like pointed to like he did like his touchdown celebration after just a first down, and I think somebody talked to him because he didn't do that for the rest of the game. Jerry Jones is apparently crying after the loss. So the Cowboys, they're probably going to hire a new head coach. Mike McCarthy was clearly didn't have this team ready to play. They had them like blowing out the Commanders for some reason. Like probably the Packers saw their playbook and were just able to expose it and had one of their best games of the season.
I yelled ass a bunch of times when Dak threw that pick six because I was so happy in the show that he was ass.
Yeah, it was just a ridiculous game. I couldn't believe it. It was such a laugher. I did not expect that at all. I thought it was going to be closer. I thought Dallas was going to win. I thought the refs were going to do it in their favor. Shout out to the fact that they didn't have officials tampering this game. Which I can't say that for. I mean, I watched a lot of Dallas games. A lot of questionable calls throughout this season. So. I do love the fact that they won all their regular season home games, and the one home game they get, they lose. I think that is just hilarious. And just we talked about it earlier in other segments, but the fact that they have beaten Green Bay, or Green Bay has beaten them every single time in that stadium, including 3 losses in the postseason, it's just remarkable to me as a stat. And yeah, I don't know. The amount of memes made me so happy today. It's just people seem to have like a backlog of the memes ready to go, and poor Scooter, has to generate content negative for
After like 25 years of losing, though, there's a lot of Cowboys failure memes that are just
yeah,
ready.
it's fantastic. I mean, first take was great, and just people were like giving live recaps of what they were saying, with Skip and with all of them, So it's just the fact is these news programs make news because the Cowboys fail, which is hilarious to me. But it is a great thing. I could talk about the Cowboys failing all night long, but I am going to continue on with some of the other games. But the next one was actually, I think, one of the closest games, if not the closest game of the playoffs so far. The Lions scored first over the Rams. The Rams came back and scored a field goal. The Lions and scored another touchdown. The Rams came back and got it to a 4-point game. The Lions got another touchdown, extended it to 11. And then a touchdown for the Rams, cut it back to a 4-point game going into the second half. The Lions were able to kick a 54-yard field goal to make it up 24-17. And then the Rams got a field goal to cut it back down to 4 again. And then, another field goal in the fourth quarter by the Rams, gets it within 1, but not quite enough. There was still 8:13 left at that time, and it looked like the Rams were maybe going to come back, but the Lions were able to hold on, and just a really exciting moment for Detroit fans. And Eminem was there, and they got a home game and they got a win, and just a really good good story. So I'm happy for the Lions that they didn't do all this, and I'm kind of happy that the Lions lost that game to the Cowboys, because then they fell to a different spot. Because that's the last thing I'll say about the Cowboys. They're the first 2 seed to lose to a 7 seed in the history of the sport. Now I know that the 7th seed hasn't been around very long, but by definition, it's the lowest seed to advance in the history of the sport, right? So I'm kind of happy that the Lions fell to the Rams instead of having to play them. So I think Green Bay was like the perfect team to play Dallas. And so all the stars kind of aligned, and just really happy for the Lions. But Tim, I'll start with you. What were some of your thoughts on this game?
I agree. I'm happy for Detroit Lions fans. They definitely showed out in this game, and it's partially because the Rams don't have a ton of fans that will travel. So it was, 95% loud Lions fans. Also, the storylines of this game were great. The first playoff game where the 2 quarterbacks went back, to play the team that they were traded from. So it was almost like too good of a story, like the NFL fixed the matchups. It was like too perfect to have that storyline. And so both quarterbacks kind of had a revenge game going, but obviously Goff got the win. He's the one without the championship, but a big chip on his shoulder. Plus, they were showing the graphic during the game. The Lions turned the Stafford trade into like 6 players that all start. So there's a lot of guys that can say, I was traded for Stafford. I want to beat him on the Lions roster, and they played very physical. Um, Played really well. I think the Rams had a great season. You know, just to get to this point is impressive. They'll probably be pretty good next year as well. But the Lions deserve that second home game that they're gonna get, and I guess Eminem will go again. But like you said, I mean, the seeding doesn't matter because they're still gonna get that second home game. And I think their bracket is great because I think them against Tampa is a good matchup for them, really for anybody. No offense to Tampa, but I do think they can definitely win that game.
Yeah. All right, so Champ, I want you to give your thoughts next, and then when you're done, throw it to Arun. I'm gonna get a new glass of water, but I'll be right back. But I'm still listening in my ear.
Aye, aye. All right. So I know that the one of the big stories is that Detroit, this is their first playoff win at home since 1991 when I was like 8 years old and stuff like that. So that shows you how old I am. But another big story out of this one was Puka. Puka set a new record for most receiving yards by a rookie in a playoff game, 181 yards on 9 catches off of 10 targets. And he also had a touchdown pass. He averaged 20.1 yards per catch. So clearly, Puka was a big part of why Los Angeles was still in this game despite falling short. Matthew Stafford returning to Detroit in a playoff game went for 367 yards and 2 touchdowns with no picks. He went 25 for 36. So he balled out. Jared Goff had played well as well. He was very pretty accurate back there with 22 or 27 for 277 yards and a touchdown, though he did get sacked 3 times. Amron St. Brown, he was pretty solid as well. He had 9 targets and caught 7 of those 9 targets for 110 yards. He didn't catch a touchdown though. But he played well as well. So this is one of the more competitive games of the weekend between these two teams. It was a Sunday night game, and they absolutely brought it. And Detroit can rejoice in the fact that they've won a playoff game for the first time in over 33 years. And now they have a chance to possibly win a second playoff game at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next week. They got all the momentum, but Tampa's also got all the momentum as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that matchup plays out. But Detroit really looked really good in this game, but so did Los Angeles in what was a very competitive but tough loss for Los Angeles. Now, Arun, I toss it over to you. What did you think about this very competitive game between Los Angeles and Detroit?
Yeah, I thought this game. I thought the Rams before this game. I thought they were going to win, but then it turned out that the Lions they got Sam Laporta back, so that was a weapon that I thought they didn't have. But even then, the Lions kind of ran all over the Rams in the first half. But in the second half, the Rams managed to only held the Lions to 3 points after giving up 21 points in the first half. But the Rams, their problem was they got to the red zone. They were 0 for 3 in the red zone, whereas the Lions were 3 for 3, getting touchdowns. Maybe there was a missed call on one of those drives. It looked like Puka might have been held. But I feel like the Rams kind of dug themselves in too big of a hole. They didn't really seem. Normally, teams are running ball better in the second half, not in the first half. They also missed Kyron Williams in the second half. He left the game in the fourth quarter with an injury. But all in all, the Rams can just point at themselves. They with a chance to get the ball back. They gave up a first down to Armand St. Brown, and Josh Reynolds, he had 5 catches for 80 yards, and Cooper Kupp, he had 5 catches for 27 yards. That's probably the big difference. That Cooper Kupp, the Super Bowl MVP a couple years ago, he was a non-factor. Even though Puka had an amazing game, the Lions were able to just do enough at home. And I also thought it was interesting that Raheem Morris was the defensive coordinator of the Rams, and um, Ben Johnson was the coordinator, the offensive coordinator of the Lions. That are going head to head. In the first half, you could say Ben Johnson got the better of the Rams defense, and Raheem Morris he kind of made really good adjustments in the second half. So it'll be interesting to see which of these candidates the Commanders consider.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. We're gonna have Dujournay on next week to talk about our general manager. I know that he's has his first press conference, I believe, tomorrow. So we're gonna have some more news coming out of that, and I'm hoping that they announce a new coach within the next week or so. Because I really wanted to talk about both of those with him. So that's why we're kind of holding off a week, and I thought we'd give him the week off for MLK, and next week we'll talk about some of the other playoff stuff as well. All right. We do have. I was been chatting here while I was getting my water with Big Bill Hendo, who's in chat. Who's a musician actually from Texas, and I kind of just assumed because he's from Texas that he would root for either the Cowboys or Houston, but he's actually a Green Bay fan from Texas. So I think he's going to be happy right now.
Ended up.
Yeah, I'm
By the
sure.
way, quick update: there's been a serious injury that's happened during the Bucks Eagles game. The players being carted off. They said he tried to walk off on his own power with assistance, and he went back down. So they're bringing out the cart to take him out. He got bit backwards on a tackle. It didn't look very good. So sending out prayers to the injured Eagle player.
Oh, he's an Eagle player. Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm seeing it now. Thank you for letting me know. I was out in the other room. Uh, so yeah. So far the Eagles are 0 for 8 on third down. Tampa Bay is 5 for 12 on third down conversions, which is a big part of the reason they're up 25-9. It's crazy that a team is hosting another team, even though they have two less wins. And yeah, just like that. I don't want to spoil it. I have friends that are watching. But I will. Something great just happened in that. So I'll let you guys watch that. I don't know where you are, but uh,
I'm already assuming the Eagles lost, so that's great enough.
yeah, it is great enough. But this is kind of the final nail in the coffin.
I think I'm in the same timeline as you.
Oh my God! Yo, he threw that off his back foot with someone in his face, and Goodwin caught it. What the?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just go home, Philly. Just go home. Just go home. Go get. Just get.
I'm just watching this Eagles fan on this other feed. Anyway, shout out to Al Mal Music. He's a rapper. He's a big time Eagles fan. He lives in Texas. But oh, so watching his face over here is
Chris Godwin caught that. Baker Mayfield just threw that up, and he somehow caught it. That's crazy.
yeah,
Eagles fans put the bag on their head.
yeah. Oh man, they're so excited. Um, I love the celebration. Everything about this has been the perfect weekend, of football for at least from my point of view. The Ravens didn't have to play, get injured. They get a little bit of time there, right? Every game pretty much goes. The Browns get knocked out. I don't really care about the Chiefs, Dolphins, but I'm fine if Taylor Swift gets to stay around for another week. We get the Cowboys getting destroyed. The Lions Rams, a game that was touted to be this great game, got to actually be a great game. And then that kind of leads into the next one, which is this Bills Steelers game. This game gets moved because there's a blizzard, a lot of snow. I can't believe. How good that stadium looked today, with everything that they had to endure the last, 2 or 3 days. Uh, Liz was shocked because it didn't look scratched up at all. I mean, obviously they had to tarp the hell out of that thing to make that work, but like kudos to their ground crew for making it look that good after all that they had just gone through. And yeah, it was. The Bills' win probability was pretty high the entire game. It wasn't. The final score is 17-31, but I don't even think it's really that close. Buffalo scores the first touchdown, and Josh Allen a passing one, a second passing touchdown, 4 minutes 15 seconds left in the first to go up 14-0. A rushing touchdown for 52 yards, one of the largest rushing touchdowns by yardage in the history of the NFL playoffs, right? Which, you think about all the great rushing quarterbacks in history, for Josh Allen to now be like top three, I think it was, in the history. Anyway, up 21-0 all the way before, with less than 2 minutes left in the first half. Pittsburgh finally gets on the board and makes it with a 10-yard touchdown pass, makes it 21-7. They did kick a field goal, a 40-yard field goal to cut it to 21-10. And then Buffalo got a field goal of their own to make it 24-10. Rudolph did get a touchdown to make it 24-17 to cut it to a 7-point game. But Josh Allen got a touchdown of his own to end it to make it 31-17 there. Ken, I'll start with you. What are some of your thoughts on this one?
I'm sorry. Fucking Aru put 2 tweets in our group chat of fucking Jay Gruden saying he apologizes if he ever put a quarterback through what the Phillies put through Jalen Hurts through, and RG3 replied to it say what? I just can't be okay. All right. Yeah, so I watched this game, and I mean, Josh Allen and Buffalo just had their way with Pittsburgh and their defense. And everybody knows, anybody who's been watching football as long as I have knows that Pittsburgh is always known for their defense. They've been always, that's what they're known as, the steel curtain. They're always known for their defense. But today, that defense had no answer for Josh Allen. The fact that his first 2 touchdowns were to 2 different tight ends on dimes was a big indicator of how this defense was not prepared for what they had to deal with. Obviously, Josh Allen had a really good game. He only had 203 yards passing, but he had 3 touchdowns, and he went 21-30. Cook had 79 yards rushing on the ground. Like I said, the tight ends had their way with this team. Mason Rudolph struggled, going 22 or 39 for 229 yards. He did have 2 touchdown passes, but he did have an interception. He did get sacked. And it was just, Buffalo was in their element. And I think one of the things that I loved about this game was there was still snow in the stands, and every time Buffalo scored a touchdown, they just threw snow up in the air. That rushing touchdown that Josh Allen had, where he broke like 50-11 tackles, that was ridiculous. That also showed me that this defense was not prepared. The fact that they couldn't take Josh Allen down on a not really designed run play. It was a scramble play, and he ended up rushing it in for a touchdown to really open this game, blow this game wide open. Buffalo really wanted this win. They were coming off a win to win the division against Miami the week prior, and they showed why they still had the momentum, and they were able to take out Pittsburgh. And on a side note, Coach Tomlin was asked during the presser after the game about his future with the team. He didn't even say a word. He walked off. He literally looked around, and then just took a walk. Didn't say nothing, just left, just walked out. So be interesting to see what his future lies with this team. He's been able to go his entire coaching tenure with this team without having a losing season, but he hasn't won a playoff game in 5 straight seasons. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when he has one more year left on his contract. So that's something to keep an eye on, because Pittsburgh is not known to like go through coaches like anybody else. Tom is only I think, third or fourth head coach in Pittsburgh Steelers history. So I'll be interested to see if he stays for another 18th season, or if he's gone and they got to go get another coach.
Yeah, gotta give a shout out to Troy, who's checking us out on Facebook. He also sometimes checks us out on Twitch. He was saying it was Darius Slay who was injured, but also the press conference is at 2 p.m. tomorrow, and he was also glad that Dallas lost. So shout out to people checking us out on Facebook today. I also, in chat, both on Twitch and on Facebook, have given Arun's 2 Twitter links, and I'm actually going to catch a Pokemon right now on Twitch as well. But yeah, hilarious. Coach Jay Gruden's comment and RG3's response. Gotta love X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it this week. But There is some value still on it, I guess. But yeah, and welcome to chat, Arun, over there. Yeah, so they're up 32-9 in this game. We're gonna assume that they're gonna win this one with 2:30 left, and we're gonna talk about. Or wait, Arun, did you give your thoughts on this Steelers Bills game?
No, but I don't really have anything to say about it.
All right, fair enough. All right. So this Eagles
Tim
Buccaneers
didn't give his
kind of
thought either.
what?
Tim didn't give his thoughts either.
Oh yeah, Tim. Do you have any? Oh yeah, I mean you hate Pittsburgh. Give your thoughts.
Yeah, I think Tomlin is probably going to leave just based on him just walking out, like Ken was saying. But I mean, the Steelers didn't really belong in the playoffs. I think it really was just great coaching, and they had that little run with Rudolph at the end of the year. But they were just never, like you said, they were never in the game. They were down 21-0, and they didn't have Watt today, so that hurt them a lot. But I kind of like the snow game, because yeah, celebrating with the snow was cool. And I think it was funny that they paid the fans to like help shovel. It
Yeah,
seems like a simple solution, but it worked. So good
yeah,
for Buffalo.
yeah. I like it as well. Yeah, I was just so happy that Buffalo won. I definitely think it would have been a huge advantage for the Steelers if they had been forced to play in the snow. Somehow. Like I definitely think with their running game and I don't know. I just think that it would have been a very different matchup. I think Buffalo definitely took a major advantage by having it delayed a couple of days, and so yeah. I was happy to see that it looks like all the NFC East teams are out, and it looks like all the AFC North teams, other than the Ravens, are out, which is what I like to see over the course of this week. I'm going to assume that the Buccaneers are going to win this game, and we're going to talk about the upcoming games with that sort of in mind. The I guess. So one of the games hasn't been written out yet, but I'm just gonna look at the bracket. So
They
It's
know
Baltimore,
going to be
this.
Detroit. It's
They
going to
know
be
the
Detroit,
schedule.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
Detroit, Tampa Bay is going to be the other game that's going to be decided.
yeah,
Everything
yeah.
else has been decided except that one.
That'll be
yeah,
Sunday or the early game.
Yeah, it'll be Sunday at 3:30.
yes, perfect. All right, so let's go through them. We'll start with the Baltimore Houston game. This game will be at Baltimore on Saturday at 4:30. Tim, I'll start off with you. What are some of your thoughts on that one?
Well, I will say I just saw the lines for the divisional games. The Ravens are favored by 9.5 points, which I think is a little high to be honest. I think the Ravens will win. They have a lot of advantages like defense and experience and coaching probably. But Stroud is a great quarterback. I think Houston could definitely win if the Ravens don't play well. And, you have to worry about the classic one seed trap game. I think the one seed loses like 40% of the time. So, the Ravens have lost in that position and many teams have. You can't take the game lightly. But I will pick the Ravens because I just think they're the better team and we'll have a good home advantage. The other thing is, I think obviously if Pittsburgh had won today and played in Baltimore, I think they would have a lot more fans than Houston will have. So that'll help the Ravens too. So I'll pick them, but I'm not like one of those gung ho fans that's like saying blowout or it's an easy win or anything.
Right. Ken, what are your thoughts on this one?
I have to agree with Tim here. Like Houston did show up and show out on Wild Card Weekend. CJ Stroud showed up and showed out, but this is a different animal going into Baltimore. That's a rabid fan base. That stadium's going to be rocking and rolling. Plus, it's going to be outdoors. I want to see how CJ Stroud plays outdoors when it's under 50 degrees because I know it's going to be a chilly day in Baltimore because it's been chilly up here in the DMV for the last couple of days. So I know it's going to be chilly there. I want to see how CJ Stroud performs in a cold weather game and if he can stand up to the challenge of a very tough defense and a very, very tough environment in Baltimore. I Nothing against the kid. I don't think he has the chops for it. I think Baltimore wins this one, but I feel like this is going to be a shootout because Lamar Jackson and CJ Stroud, both of them are very, very good quarterbacks. They're going to be slinging it all over the field. There's going to be a lot of points scored. I think this is going to be a shootout here, but I think Baltimore is the one that will be standing tall in this shootout.
Yeah, one thing to go back to what you were just saying there about how cold it was. I hadn't even checked it out. The high of the day right now, I mean, obviously weather in the DMV changes quite drastically. It's currently having a snowstorm right now. But the low of the day is 16 and the high is 25.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
Yeah,
high high
I got an
winds.
alert while we were talking that it's a winter storm warning in effect right now because there's more snow coming overnight. So
yeah,
there you go.
yeah, crazy. This is gonna be a really cold game, like colder than I would have expected. So I'll be
I,
interested to see how that definitely plays into a Texas team coming up here. Because it'd be even colder than most of the Ravens games have been. So it's not. It's even.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think wind actually might favor the Ravens because if the passing game is tough, they'll probably just pound the run game. And I think the Texans need to be able to pass to win because they can run, but they're not like dominant on the run.
Yeah. Arun, what are some of your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, the Ravens and Texans they played earlier in the season. The Ravens won 26-7, although it was like 7-6 at halftime. So like the Texans defense kind of limited Lamar Jackson, but the Ravens completely shut down CJ Stroud. But the Texans are a much better team, even with a couple injuries than they were probably in week one. They've kind of like, especially CJ Stroud's like developed into more of a clutch player, but it's going to be tough for the Texans to win probably because the Ravens do have a bye, and as you all mentioned, like not even the weather, but just like the Ravens have a really good home field. Lamar is 1-3 in the playoffs, but I think he'll probably get a second win in postseason play.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I wonder how often the same first team that you see in the regular season is in the same location and you see them as your first game in the postseason, right? Like that's kind of like random.
It's
Like
60 degrees colder though. I feel like it was like hot that day.
yeah, exactly. So like, but that's nuts when you think about it. September 10th on a Sunday, it was in Baltimore against Houston, and then you got January 20th against that same Houston team. And Arun was right; it was 25-9, but it was a close first half, and the Ravens did pull away there in the third quarter. A couple of field goals there in the fourth. But yeah, it'll be an interesting rematch for sure. We always
It
talk
was
about how.
78 degrees. It was 78 degrees when they played in September.
Oh yeah, so
It's
there you
going to
go.
be at least 30 or 40 degrees colder than that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
I think it's gonna be 20s, right?
yeah, it's in the 20s,
Yeah.
25. So 78 to 25. So yeah, it's a lot. So it's 53 degrees colder. So
Mm-hmm.
Not
uh,
Kansas City though or Buffalo,
yeah, but
but
still a
but
lot.
yeah, it's way worse than a dome.
Welcome in, Hez, joining us. Yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup. Arun, any final thoughts before we move on?
Uh, no, not really.
Okay. All right, let me pull back the graphic. I'm gonna go back to the regular graphic. Now, we're going to talk about the other side of the AFC bracket, which is Kansas City and Buffalo. Two cold weather teams that had to play in the cold and had to deal with snowy conditions. This game will be back in Buffalo. 6:30 is the afternoon game on the Sunday. I'll start off with Ken on this one. What are your thoughts on Kansas City going to Buffalo?
We have seen these two teams play against each other in the playoffs in the last couple of years, and it's always gone the way of KC. I feel like this is the year Buffalo finally gets it right against them. It's in Buffalo. KC has been playing shaky, though they did get a victory, a double-digit victory over Miami. I still think they're still shaky enough that I think Buffalo can get it done. Buffalo looked absolutely looked absolutely good against Pittsburgh today or Monday, and I think that they're going to carry that momentum into this game, and I think they're going to get it. They're going to get catch Patrick Mahomes and them slipping, and I think they're going to do good work here. The only way KC can possibly win this game, they definitely have to stop Cook in the running game. And they definitely have to be very cognizant of not only Stephon Diggs, but their two tight ends for Buffalo, because both of those tight ends were managed to get touchdown passes in this Pittsburgh game. So they are going to have to really do that in order to win this one. But I feel like this is the one that Buffalo will win. They haven't been able to beat KC in the playoffs. I think this is the year they do it.
Yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that happens. Sorry, I was just seeing the face of the Eagles fan as the final moments there. There in this game. So I'm just so happy right now. I'm just this couldn't have gone any better. Tim, what are your thoughts on this Kansas City Buffalo game?
So I'm with the odd setters. I guess I'm with Ken too. They have Buffalo favored by 2.5 points, which basically means these teams are even, and that's the home advantage for Buffalo. And I'm gonna go with that as well because I think it's gonna be a great game because these teams have played a couple of great head-to-head matchups in the playoffs, but Mahomes and playing in Kansas City has always been the difference. I think just the Bills got hot at the right time. I think they'll win a close game. Um, I think Allen will just be great again, like he was today, and they'll probably pull it out. Nobody can be shocked if Kansas City wins, but I just think Buffalo at home should be able to win like a one-score game.
Yeah, I have it kind of going the same way. How do you have it, Arun?
I'm not sure because like even that last game they played in Kansas City, like it was like interesting that actually kind of decided home field. That weird call that like he was off sides. It was the right call, but I don't think there's like a lot separating either of these teams. So I think this game is like a toss up. I just might take the points with KC, but I don't even know who's gonna win.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a lot of points. I understand betting on KC for sure. It's a tough one. I do love the history of them, but at some point, like there's due theory also. Like Buffalo's got to win one of these matchups. It's
They did win in the regular season, but I guess yeah, postseason
but
would be
like the
a
one,
lot
yeah,
more.
the playoff one. But I agree, which gives me some hope that they know that it's possible, you know. But at the same time, and they've had some really. This is what Tim was talking about earlier. There's been a lot of great matchups between these two teams over the last 5 years, and it's been interesting. It's kind of become a little bit of a rivalry here. So I'm kind of excited to see it again in the playoffs for sure. Let's switch over to the NFC bracket. So the Saturday night game, we already talked about the Saturday afternoon game is going to be a really good one. That Green Bay San Francisco matchup. I still think San Francisco is going to beat Green Bay, but Green Bay is a scrappy team, and I don't think you can count them out, especially after what they were able to do going on the road. And then now they know that they're kind of road warriors, and they're playing with house money. No one expects them to win both of them. But Ken, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
This is a classic rivalry. A lot of people may not know this who may have not watched football as long as I have. This is a classic rivalry of the Packers and the 49ers. These guys have had scraps, especially in the playoffs. The 49ers have played very well this season. They finished the season 12-5. They're the top seed in the NFC, but they cannot rest on their laurels here, especially against the Green Bay team that went into Dallas and absolutely whooped their asses. So they really are coming in here with a lot of momentum, and they're really coming in here with a lot of firepower. Jordan Love is like playing out of his mind. Brock Purdy is just showing that even though he was Mr. Irrelevant last year, he's still a very talented quarterback. So this is going to be another game here that's going to be very, very interesting to watch. If I had to pick who would win this one, and I wish I had my soundboard for this one, I think Green Bay upsets San Francisco here.
Hmm.
I really do. I really think Green Bay upsets San Francisco only because of the fact that Jordan Love has absolutely been just pinpoint on the money with his game, and he showed it against Dallas in a tough environment. San Francisco's not that much of a tough environment in terms of a road game, and San Francisco played well, but I really think Green Bay can pull this one out. So I'm going to go with Green Bay on this one.
Yeah, we've seen Green Bay on the road here in Washington in 2012, be a good road team. I I I think it's kind of a smart pick, especially because they're giving San Francisco 10, which maybe I could see San Francisco winning by like a touchdown, but I know that they're a 7 seed in Green Bay, so it's easy to pick against them. But the fact that they had to go into a hostile environment, and then even though they kind of put that ass whipping out there, they still had to hold on at the end. And I think they know that they can't just rest on their laurels, and they came out strong. There's a lot to really like about a team that's gotten to play a tough game like that in the first week on the road versus a team that's been sitting back and waiting, right? So we've
But
seen
by the
this.
way, the last time that Green Bay and San Francisco faced each other, January 22nd of 2022, San Fran only won by 3.
Yeah. So I think 10 points, I'd be interested to see if it might be closer than that because they're just not a typical 7 seed. I feel that. I think that division was very tough this year. And yes, there has been some ups and downs for Green Bay for sure with, I mean, they basically have a little better than 500 record, but uh, I think that they're a better team than their record looks it, or at least they've kind of rounded into form at the right time. But Tim, what are some of your thoughts?
I kind of feel similar to this game and the Ravens game, just with the lines being like 10 points, 9 points. I think it's like a little high, like you're saying. It should be closer to 7, maybe. But I do like San Francisco just because I think Purdy obviously last year had success winning some playoff games, and San Francisco has been there and won a lot of playoff games lately. I think they know what it takes to get through the divisional round. And with the Eagles and the Cowboys out now, to me, the NFC is very open. And I could see San Francisco losing, but I'll still pick them because I just think they're the better team and they're not like, a very young team, like first time in the playoffs or something.
So I still have some of the games on in the background, and I was looking at a statistic that they were just showing. So the Eagles were like the best team at third down conversion like all season, almost 48%, which is really good. They converted zero tonight. So that is mind blowing and a huge reason that they lost that game because they just can't keep drives going. That's why they couldn't get into double digits in scoring. So yeah, anyway, the Buccaneers won that game 32-9. If anybody is tuning in late for that one, but Arun, your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, like as Ken pointed out, that last time they played in the playoffs was 13-10, but the big difference will be that that game was in Green Bay where it was 14 degrees, and this game will be in California with much warmer weather, so that'll probably help both teams. And I think they gotten Christian McCaffrey since then, so the 49ers, I think their defense is probably what separates them from the Cowboys. I don't think the uh, Cowboys defense has been good as the 49ers defense, especially since Diggs went down. So I think the spread might be a little bit high, but that's to be expected, especially since the 49ers had an off week and this game's on Saturday night, so it's even a short week for the Packers. So I think the 49ers, I'd be a little bit surprised if they won, but I kind of want the Packers to win. It'd be kind of funny if Jordan Love could beat the 49ers while Aaron Rodgers couldn't, but right now I'm expecting a 49ers win.
So I just watched a heartwarming moment where the McCollums were exchanging jerseys after that game. I didn't realize that they each played for the other team. So that's kind of cool. Um, the yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I can see why people think San Francisco is going to win. They've played well, but there was a couple of moments down the stretch here in the regular season that kind of gives me hesitancy. And having that week off, I don't know. Sometimes that helps a team and sometimes it hurts them. So it's going to be interesting. I think the key here is if Green Bay can start off fast, both on offense, score on their first drive, but also stop San Francisco on opening drive and keep the crowd a little bit out of it. I think that will. I think that's what they did against Dallas, and I think it helped them a lot. I think if you keep San Francisco in it, and San Francisco is getting a lot of explosive plays, I think it could run away from them. So like I think that's really the key is to really start strong, and maybe that was a good play to win the coin toss and like take it to them early. So that will be interesting. The last game is the Detroit Tampa Bay game. Tampa Bay team is kind of scrappy. They are going to be going to Detroit. I still think my gut feeling is I think Detroit continues their success against Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay not having their home crowd behind them anymore. I think that was a big part of this game. I was talking about before about I think that Tampa Bay should get in because they won a division, but maybe Philly should get home field because they have a better record in the future. Look into some of that sort of stuff. Because the home field made a huge difference in this, potentially in this game, and I think this game would have been different in Philly. And I'll be curious to see if it makes a difference in this Lions game. I'll start off with you, Tim. What are your thoughts on the Lions and Tampa Bay?
I also think the Lions will take this game. The Bucks have a similar thing going like with the Packers where they don't have a lot to lose now. They weren't even a short thing to win the division till like the very last week. They needed a couple things to happen for them. So they're going to be playing very loose, I think. It's just like you said, Detroit's crowd was strong. They're going to, I don't think there's going to be a big Bucks contingent there. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think they're going to have a very loud advantage. And I think Detroit is just a better team. Yes, they struggled a little bit towards the end of the year, but they just played well the entire season and have a better record. And I think they deserve this home game, and they'll probably win by like one or two scores.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think of all the teams that have got to be excited right now, the Lions, going into the playoffs, it was kind of a tough. I think it would have been tough for them to have to play the Eagles and the Cowboys. I just don't think that it particularly match up great against them. And now that those two teams are knocked out, I think it sets a stage for the Lions to do much better. And it's kind of as my feeling on how watching them play each other this year. I mean, the Cowboys Lions game was very close, obviously, but I don't know. I just think that it worked out well for them. Ken, what are some of your thoughts?
It's time to bring up recency bias here. Detroit beat Tampa Bay this season 20-6 in Tampa Bay in week 6. Jared Goff went off for 353 yards and 2 touchdowns to beat them. I think that that's going to be a big key for Detroit because now they're at home. And Detroit has already shown that they're going to show up for this playoff game. They did that for LA for the LA game. I think they're going to do it here, and I think Tampa Bay's in trouble here. I think Detroit wins this one. I don't think they're going to win it big because Baker Mayfield had a really good game tonight, and he's really starting to show up, and he's really starting to get into a stride. But I really think that this is going to be a bit of a closer game, but I think Detroit wins this game here to get to the NFC Championship game, and then they'll be waiting to see if they're going to be hosting the NFC Championship game or if they're going to be heading to San Francisco for the NFC Championship game. But I honestly think Detroit is going to be in their first NFC Championship game in a very long time.
Yeah, right now Detroit's favored by 6, which seems about right. On the early, uh, very early lines, since that just dropped. But I think that line will also move. I wouldn't be surprised. But it'll be interesting to see going forward. Arun, what are some of your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's like the Bucks are actually better on the road than at home, but not much better. But I think Detroit is kind of a bad matchup for them. Like just the pass rush and the crowd noise was kind of a factor in the first half of the Lions Rams game. But I it wouldn't really surprise me if the Bucks won because Mike Evans is having a really good year. But I'm probably just going to stick with the Lions, and I might even just take them with the spread.
The Lions are 6-2 at home during the season.
Yeah, I think this is big for the Lions. And wouldn't that be something if Green Bay wins and they have to go to Detroit? Like, that would be what a rematch. You know what I mean? Like, just, so I don't know. It would just be really interesting because they played some interesting games this season where they won at Green Bay, but they lost their home one. I remember between the Lions, so they won on kind of what we do with the Giants a lot of the time. Win on the opposite, although we couldn't even do that this year. So I mean, that would be a really interesting matchup. I love Anna and I'll root for the 49ers for her, but that would be a great matchup for a NFC championship game. Just that historic rivalry, and Green Bay coming to town, and because usually Green Bay is the home team, right? So the fact that the Lions would be the home team in that situation would be really interesting.
By
Um,
the way, for anybody who cares, for a divisional round weekend, the Wizards play the Spurs and the Nuggets that weekend at home, back to back.
Interesting. Um, all right, well, I think we got through all the games in, about what I expected. I thought it'd take about 100 minutes, and it did. But I'm proud of us. We survived the gauntlet that is the NFL playoffs. I'm so happy they added 2 more games to this wild card weekend. And it turned out to be great to have a 4 and 8 o'clock game each day. I know one of them moved to make that happen, but I kind of liked on MLK Day to have an earlier game. Now I know I'm lucky that I got to be home for it, but it was definitely an enjoyable experience. And it's not so crazy early that I feel like people could take off a little early on MLK Day even if they had to work, or they would just miss the first quarter and catch the rest of the game. I didn't mind it, and I liked that it wasn't two competing ones at the same time. Because in the COVID year, if you remember, sometimes they would move stuff to like both be Sunday night game or Monday night games, and then you got 2 games on competing networks, and so I like this a lot better. So kudos to the NFL for getting this right this weekend. I thought there were some great games, and I'm very biased because all the games went the way I wanted. So that's rare. So hopefully the same thing will go next week. So with that, I'm going to let Tim give his final thoughts, and then he can get out of here because I know that I'm sure even with I don't know how they work with remote days. If you get snow days, you probably don't. So
No, it's all the same, but
yeah,
at least I'm
um,
not driving in the snow. That's the key
yeah, that's
because it's
definitely
nasty
true.
out there.
Yeah. So Tim, let anyone know your final thoughts on anything you want to talk about, and I hope that you have a great week.
No, it was a great time. Hopefully next week I can talk about a Ravens win, but we'll see. And good to talk with you guys again, and I'll see you again next Monday.
Sounds good. Awesome. Appreciate it. Arun, any
Yeah.
final thoughts before we let you go?
No, not really. I'm just going to enjoy this RG3 Jay Gruden tweet fight. There are more tweets that are coming, so I think might be even more content for me to enjoy.
Yeah, I have to say, Arun, when we started this bit 8 years ago, I did not think that we could continuously talk RG3 on almost every show for 8 years. But I'm so happy he's a commentator and that somehow he's still very relevant in our
I
lives.
wish Carol was here to enjoy this
I
content.
know, I do too. That's true.
Yo,
We'll have to take the clips and send it to him.
Yo, okay, this tweet that Arun just put in the group chat is a reply to Jay Gruden, who said you weren't prepared, Robert, and his response was, "You told me you didn't know how to coach a quarterback who could throw and run like me, so looks like you weren't prepared, Jay." With the pictures was taking me out.
Oh my God, that's so good. All right, I'm putting it in Twitch chat, and I'm also gonna put it on the Facebook feed. That's hilarious. Um, that's really good. Oh my God. All right. Well, Arun, thank you for always bringing the great commentary from RG3 and from all the different statistics that you bring to the table. Anything you want to say or before we let you go?
No, that's it. Signing up with RG3 News. That's it.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, my RG3 correspondent Arun. And we'll talk to you next week. And yeah, so Lewis said my Chiefs are in and they play the Bills. Yeah, that's true. So anyway, thank you everyone for sticking around on Facebook and on Twitch. I'm gonna let Champ. I'm gonna do a couple of graphic switches real quickly, and do the no spots graphic. And yeah, let people know, Champ, the top three maybe wrestling stories of the week that you're working on and what you're talking about this week and what you talked about last week or whatever you think is meaningful to you.
Right. So, Impact Wrestling has rebranded to its original name of TNA Wrestling. They had their first event this past weekend, Hard to Kill, which we did a live stream reactions to, and a couple of former WWE performers showed up to the show and made appearances on the show. Zaya Brookside, who was part of NXT UK, is signed to a 3-year deal. She was a part of the Ultimate X match to determine a number one contender for the Knockouts World Championship. AJ Francis, formerly known as Top Dollar, was part of the pre-show where he debuted a video, but he got interrupted by Joe Hendry, and he attacked Joe Hendry for that. Also showing up was the former Dana Brooke, now known as Ash by Design. She showed up and was front row for the Knockouts World Championship match. That was the second to last match of the night. And then at the end of the match, after Moose won the TNA World Championship, Nick Nemeth, who was formerly known as Dolph Ziggler in WWE, showed up and attacked Moose to basically make his intentions known that not only is he part of TNA Wrestling, but he's also coming for the TNA World Championship. Nemeth has been very busy since his non-compete was ended. He not only will look to make an impact in TNA, but he also has a shot at the Global Heavyweight Championship in New Japan against David Finlay after what he did in his fight with David Finlay at Wrestle Kingdom. So that's a big thing to talk about. The other thing to talk about as well, Cora Jade, who just returned from injury with NXT, suffered what was reportedly known as a torn ACL during a live event for NXT this past weekend. So it looks like she's going to be on another long hiatus with that, because typically a torn ACL with surgery, it's a minimum 9 month recovery period. Sometimes it's a little more than about a year. So the young lady will be out for about 9 months to a year. So very, very tragic for her. So those are some of the things that we're looking at now with wrestling. No Spots will be on streaming live this Sunday on our Twitch channel, where we will be recapping Hard to Kill, myself and Seth, and we will be presenting, as we do every year in January, our top 10 matches of 2023. And it's one show you definitely want to see, because even if you're a non-wrestling fan, this is something that can get you into wrestling, learning at least what the best matches of 2020 the most recent year are, as something to go and watch to maybe get you into wrestling. And a lot of times our picks, we may have the same matches on the list, but they're in different spots. So it's definitely something that you want to check out. So that'll be this coming Sunday on the No Spots Podcast Twitch channel, twitch.tv/True No Spots Pod. So make sure you tune in.
Chip, got a couple questions. So one, do you and Sith share with each other your top 10 before you go on air, or is it's all
No,
revealed?
nope, nope.
Uh,
When we reveal our list, it's the first for both of us.
Nice. I love that. And so I just wanted to follow one thing that you were saying before. So can you be on multiple different wrestling programs as long as it's not WWE? So like you were
Yes,
saying New Japan and was it TN no, TNA? No.
yes.
Yeah. So you can be
So
on both of those?
basically, so here's the thing: WWE still has its own universe where the talent don't go and do other things. Okay. Some, though, recently in the last few months to a year, they have allowed talent to go to other places. Like Charlie Dempsey of NXT recently went and did a mini tour with All Japan Pro Wrestling. So there's that. But outside of that, and then Shinsuke Nakamura last year was able to go to Pro Wrestling Noah and fight uh, Keiji Muto as he was going through his retirement tour. But that was like a one-off thing. But other than that, WWE doesn't allow their talent to go and do other things and like do indies or stuff like that. Whereas TNA and AEW and even MLW, they'll allow their talent to go and do other, they'll do other other feds and things of that nature, because some of those feds they have a working relationship with, like with TNA. And this took a long time for them to get a working relationship with New Japan after the way TNA did Kazuchika Okada during his excursion there way back when, in the mid 2010s, where they had him doing this like sort of gimmick of the Green Hornets assistant, and how that went about. So they had a rocky relationship, but they've rekindled that relationship in the last couple of years. So they're able to do things, and AEW's had a relationship with New Japan because they've done two pay-per-views with them, known as Forbidden Door and things like that. And also AEW has a working relationship with two of the biggest Mexican promotions in wrestling, in AAA and CMLL. So their talent are able to do those shows, and their talent are able to do indie promotions indie shows as well. So that's the setup they have, and the same thing with TNA, because TNA, the way that their schedule is set up, they'll have like a big event, and then they'll do like a taping the next night where they'll tape a whole bunch of matches in one night, and that'll be their TV for the next couple of weeks, and then they'll bring them back in a couple of weeks, do more tapings. What TNA does is they tape a whole 2 to 3 weeks of content in one night, or in two nights, in one weekend, and then their wrestlers are free to do whatever the heck they want to do and things like that. So that's why they have those relationships. See, WWE doesn't have that because they have weekly programming, and then they have live events as well as things like that. So that's why WWE doesn't have that kind of relationship with other promotions and things like that, because of that. And plus they pretty much isolate themselves in their own world, in their own universe.
So I just want to give a quick shout out. Got a big raid from Gibson Leinster right there.
Yeah, I just saw that. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah,
Hello,
41. That's one
everybody.
of my largest raids I've ever gotten. So thank you for that. I do have a little surprise because I know that they're coming from a music community, which is not necessarily what we're talking about right now. But I am working on a podcast project with scuba footage, and where I make music videos to different Twitch streamers. And so I was going to show everyone a little bit about that. I am going to end the audio podcast and just finish that real quickly up right now because we're almost at the end of it. And then I'm going to bring that audience in. Jay Green is beefing with Brian Mitchell now. That's great. Um,
That's the last person you want smoke from, is Brian Mitchell. That's the
yeah,
last one you want.
I agree. All right, so let me just end this Facebook Live. So thank you everyone for tuning in on the Facebook Live and the audio podcast for the Sports on the Hill podcast, episodes 327. This was a Caps update and an NFL playoff talk. We went through all the different playoff matchups from this past weekend and previewed the ones from this upcoming week. Next week we'll be back with hockey talk in the first hour, and we'll in the second hour recap all four of the games from this weekend and preview the championship games in each of the conferences. And thank you, Ken, for being a part of this conversation as always. And definitely go check out Champ both on Twitch, but also his podcast if you want to talk more wrestling. So with that, I will end the Sports on the Hill podcast and say DC Sports without the politics, Sports on the Hill podcast, and let's go Caps.
Recording stopped.
Stop live stream over there. All right, so we are out over on Facebook and our audio podcast. And who's replacing Nick Sirianni next year? Ooh, that's an interesting question.
No one.
You think he's staying for another year?
Yes. I mean, come on now. Like I said, I'm nowhere near a Philly fan. I'm a Commanders fan, but Nick Sirianni has done such a good job coaching this team the last few years. There's no way you replace him. Even after a blowout like tonight, you don't replace him tonight. You don't replace him. No, you don't. You give him another year. If they take next year, then he's gone. But I think that they're going to put this team, the Philadelphia Eagles are set up so well as a team. They're going to be successful for the next several years. They're going to be a problem for the NFC, not just the division, but the conference as a whole. You don't replace Nick Sirianni. You don't. You just don't. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that this was a bit of a fluke, and the fact that they fell to a road game and just a bad timing. And I did think they were a bit fraudulent at times, though, this year. We talked about that throughout the season, that there was a lot of calls going their way. And a lot of games I thought were going to be really close, where even some of the games the Commanders should have probably beaten them. But I still think that they got to at least play it for one more year. Because if you look at them through the first half of the season, they were one of the top teams. If they could have stayed up there and got a better matchup, a home matchup, I think if they had played Green Bay at home, it may have been a different story than Dallas. Yeah, there's a lot to that. Just really quickly, we're going to pull up this file and share it with them. Ken, do you have to run right now, or can you stay for another minute or two?
I do have to run because I'm back to work tomorrow, and I have
Go for it.
Meeting.
Thank you for joining us. Everyone should go follow Champ. I just did the shout out, let me see if I can get this.
If you're into wrestling, come check us out, man. We talk a lot of wrestling on our channel.
Yeah. No spots pod. Let me do it like that. There we go. The other type of shout out. So that way people can just click on the heart and follow that. So yeah. All right, Ken, get out of here. We'll talk to you next week, and I appreciate your time as always, my brother.
Absolutely. Y'all have a great night.
All right, have a good one. All right, so let me see if I can